The asylum interview is where your case gets decided, and I've seen too many people destroy their chances by making the same avoidable mistakes. Now, today, I'm walking you through 10 critical interview errors that can sink your asylum case in 2026, and we're starting right now. I'm Brian Manning, and I spent 11 years working for the government's two main agencies for asylum and refugee matters. But now, as an asylum lawyer, well, my law firm helps immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. Let me know in the comments if you've got an asylum case pending, or maybe you're considering applying. And look, I'd especially like to hear from you if you've been waiting for an interview with USCIS for multiple years. Let me know in the comments how long you've been waiting. During my time as an immigration officer with the government, I adjudicated thousands of immigration applications, and I watched people make the same interview mistakes over and over and over and over again. Now, these weren't small missteps. These were case-killing errors that turned winnable cases into denials. So look, let's make sure that you don't fall into these same traps. Here they are. 10 asylum interview mistakes that you must avoid if you want to maximize your chances for asylum success. Number 1, sloppy dress. Look, your appearance matters more than you think. I know that what you're wearing should not impact whether you qualify for asylum under the law. But look, asylum officers are human beings, and yeah, first impressions absolutely do matter. Now, I saw people show up dirty, dressed sloppily, wearing immodest clothing, or maybe looking like they just rolled out of bed. That is not what you want. Look, you need clean, business casual attire that shows respect for the officer and for the process. Think button-up shirt with khakis for men, or maybe, a jacket over a sweater for women. You don't need a full suit necessarily, but you do need to look like you take this seriously. And by the way, bring a jacket because asylum offices are usually kept pretty cold. Okay, second mistake, dishonesty. This is the fastest way to get your case denied, and I cannot stress this enough. When I was an asylum officer, we were trained specifically to detect fraud. So when you lie, there's a very good chance that you're gonna get caught. And look, even if the officer can't actually prove it, if they suspect that you're being dishonest, well, they're not going to give you the benefit of the doubt in a close case, and they may just find an excuse to deny you. Now, beyond the strategic reasons, being honest and operating with integrity, well, it's just the right thing to do. So be completely honest and forthcoming about everything. Third mistake, trying to control the interview. Look, I get it. This is your story, your life, your future, but you're just not in control of this interview. The asylum officer is going to interrupt you constantly. They're going to ask you questions out of order, or maybe in an order that makes no sense to you, and they're going to push the interview where they want it to go. And if you try to dominate it or to steer the interview, well, you're going to frustrate the officer and hurt your case. You have to just go with the flow and answer the questions being asked. All right, asylum interview mistake number 4, losing your composure. These interviews are intense and emotional. You're talking about difficult, traumatic experiences, and sometimes officers don't have great bedside manner. Some can be impolite or even aggressive. Look, you cannot let this rattle you, okay? You need to be even keeled throughout the interview. If you get too flustered or too emotional, you won't think clearly and you won't present yourself effectively. Remember, you can always ask for a break, but do your best to maintain your composure throughout. By the way, if you want to maximize your chances for asylum success, then be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so that you don't miss the insights that I share on this channel. All right, asylum interview mistake number 5, guessing or making up answers. Look, the 3 most important words you need to be ready to say are, I don't know, or I don't remember. Look, it's absolutely okay to say that you don't know something. What's not okay is guessing or making something up because you think that the officer wants a certain answer. And if you're not entirely certain about something, like say, for example, a date, you can use qualifiers like, I think it was around, or approximately. Now, this gives you a little bit of leeway and may prevent accusations of inconsistencies later. Okay, here's mistake number 6, and this is critical. Not tailoring your testimony to address what I call the big 3. You see, nearly every question is an opportunity to provide information about the 3 main things that officers care the most about by far. First is past persecution. Was the harm that you suffered severe enough to constitute persecution? Second, future persecution. Is there a reasonable possibility that you'll face serious harm if you return to your country? And third is nexus. Is the persecution motivated by the fact that you possess one of the 5 protected characteristics under U.S. asylum law? And those 5 protected grounds are your race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or something called membership in a particular social group. Perhaps 90% of questions at the interview relate to these three concerns. Now, recognize these opportunities and use your answers to speak directly to these critical issues whenever the context allows you to do so. Okay, mistake number 7, rambling and talking too much. When you give excessively long answers, you risk annoying the officer and providing ammunition that they can use against you if you slip up. So listen carefully to each question and then just answer it directly. And once you've addressed what was asked, well, if it makes sense in the context, you can add a bit more information that helps address one of the big 3 things that the officer cares about, which we just discussed. And as we just learned, those are past harm, likelihood of future harm, and the motivation behind the persecution. But after you do that, just stop talking, sit quietly, and wait for the next question. Okay, 8th interview mistake, losing focus. Asylum interviews can last for hours. I once conducted an 8-hour interview when I was an asylum officer. Staying focused for hours is genuinely difficult, but you have to stay mentally present for the entire interview. I noticed that people often made more mistakes later in their interviews because they were tired and had mentally checked out. Don't let your mind wander, okay? And don't dwell on questions that have already passed. Instead, focus on one question at a time, right here, right now. And also be proactive, okay? Bring food and water with you, eat snacks during breaks, and don't hesitate to ask for a break when you need one. This will help you stay sharp. All right, asylum interview mistake number 9, trying to speak English when you aren't sufficiently fluent. Clear communication is absolutely vital. You must understand the officer and be understood by them. These interviews involve considerable nuance and vocabulary that isn't used in everyday conversation. So unless you are truly fluent, extremely fluent in English, well, you should conduct your interview in your native language using interpretation. Look, this is not looked down upon whatsoever. And I've seen cases ruined because people tried to speak English when they weren't proficient enough. It led to frustration and negative credibility findings based on apparent inconsistencies that were really just communication problems caused by language barriers. Don't let pride destroy your case, okay? Use an interpreter if you have any doubt about your English fluency. And finally, asylum interview mistake number 10, relying on your documents to tell your story. Some people think their personal statement or that the evidence they've submitted will speak for itself, but that's not how it works. Asylum officers interview people, not documents. What you say at your interview is far more important. I mean, far more important than anything in your written materials. Everything needs to be explained verbally through your testimony during the interview. In fact, you can actually win asylum based solely on your testimony if it's detailed, consistent, and plausible without any documentary evidence whatsoever. So look, be ready to tell your entire story at the interview, regardless of what's in your documents. I'm telling you, these 10 mistakes have destroyed many asylum cases that should have been approved. But now that you know what they are, well, you can prepare to avoid them and maximize your chances for success. If you're ready to take the next step and get help with your asylum case, then please call my office today. That number is 713-909-0401. And remember, we help people all over the country, so it doesn't matter where you live. Call us right now to schedule an asylum strategy session so that we can help you to secure your future in America through asylum. Again, I'm Brian Manning, and it's truly an honor to support you in your asylum journey.